guys, this is Bad Gamer Cat. Welcome. We are back with episode 2 of Lake of Voices. Now, this is a choice-based story game. Um, it's not like your typical game. It's more like a story where we have to make choices, and the choices that we make determine what will happen next. So you will have to go back and watch episode 1 to figure out what's going on in episode 2. Okay? So having said that, we're going to pick up where we left off. Hope you enjoy it. Almost as if in response to my thought, the guide abruptly halts. I skid to a stop as well, sliding on the surface of the wood.
Why did we stop?
Bemeli's voice is tired, but his guard is up. The guide doesn't answer, just stares at something slightly out of view. I step up to join him, following his gaze further down the path. There, curled in a little ball, illuminated by the lantern's light, cowers a person. His hands grip his head and he rocks from side to side, mumbling incoherently.
It's a man.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't. I just couldn't. Please. I'm sorry.
I'm struck with an array of questions. What is going on? Why would he wander out onto these bridges on his own? Did he make it this far by himself? Were there others with him? If that's somehow the case, I can't blame him for the state of shock he's in. The man stops mumbling. He glances above him, seemingly only now having the strength to lift his head. His expression, the deepest sadness, along with the clear markings of terror, are scrawled across his face. I stare at him in shock, not sure what to do.
Leave him.
No. I snap my eyes away from the man and instead to the guide's cold, implacable face.
No! We can't just leave him here. We've managed fine enough already, and these creatures will probably pluck him away as soon as we've gone. Without light, it's certain he'll die.
He won't make it regardless.
Why? The guide turns to look at us, his eyes seeming to glow from the closeness of his lantern. For the first time, I feel uncomfortable in his presence.
Whoever shelters him will only risk dragging themselves down with him. Leave him.
I glance at the others. Bemeli is outraged, but Margaret is staring at the man with something like fear. She's uneasy, but she doesn't voice her concerns. I'm trying to think of some kind of compromise when the guide speaks again, his voice cutting.
If the man comes, then whoever is shielding him will have to remain at a distance from the rest of the group. Far enough that you can't see me, just my light. That is how you will travel across the bridges.
Why?
I didn't agree to lead this man, and I won't. If you ask me to, I will leave you all behind.
Oh, God. Adrenaline surges through my veins and I tense up. It's a painful reminder that the guide isn't here to save our lives, but merely to show us the way. We're on our own. Margaret, Bemeli, and I frantically share more looks between each other, trying to communicate without words. None of us have a desire to speak and be the first to make a choice. They're gonna make me make the choice. The man is standing now, though still hunched, with his arms wrapped around himself as if expecting a blow. He stares at the ground rather than us. Because of this, I'm having trouble reading his face. What exactly happened to him?
Are you well, stranger? Do you know where you are and why you're here?
He glances up, not at me, but toward me, his eyes resting somewhere near my collarbone.
I'm fine. You all can go on your way. Forget you even saw me here.
That's absurd. You have no way to defend yourself. We can't leave you.
Yes, I'm sure in your eyes I might not seem like much, but that's not exactly a fair shake.
What? Nobody's saying anything that you're not much. We're saying we want to save you, you idiot.
Maybe in a perfect world, every man would be as large as you. But that's not how things always go. It doesn't mean I'm defenseless.
The man's response is meandering. The words themselves seem to be in good jest, but he's still barely looking at us and fidgeting with his hands. Bameli frowns, unimpressed.
It was a joke.
He smiles hesitantly, making eye contact with each of us for the first time.
What part of it was supposed to be the joke? Do you even realize what is happening in this moment?
Never mind. Forget that too. Point is, I'm alright.
You were curled up in a ball when we met.
Exactly! Something must be wrong with you.
Obviously he's traumatized.
Oh no. Sounds like you've been talking with my father.
He lets out a weak little laugh coupled with an eyebrow raise, voice trembling. No one really knows what to make of this. The man gives a small wave and begins down the path we came. Bameli huffs, tossing his hands into
That's
the
not
air.
even the right way.
It could be, if he's trying to get to the side we came from.
That's true.
He must have come quite a ways if it was the other shore that he started on.
The man's smile grows.
Good. That's not so bad.
There is no response to this remark, unsure of what could be said.
I still think he should come with us. A person needs a light, and the guide himself said he won't be able to manage on his own. Sticking with us is his best option.
I look over the man's body, noting the scrawniness of his limbs. Scrawny, but not necessarily lacking in muscle. The bravado he was showing as he tried to leave us has faded yet again, and now he's standing quietly, looking at us as if watching a play. Interest, but no true connection to the events.
It's easy for you to say such things, but whose light are you offering? It's not mine, and you are putting her in even more danger with your own presence already.
Bameli looks at Margaret. She avoids his gaze.
Perhaps I could have let him share my light before, but the guide has said the one with him has to remain behind, and I simply wouldn't be able to manage it.
Bameli's hands turn into fists. He looks away, but he doesn't say anything. For a moment, no one does. I feel a cold sweat on my brow as what I feared comes to pass. He's stopping us from protecting another. Why must he get involved now? Why can he not leave us to make our own decisions?
You... Don't worry about me. I'll be on my way now.
The man's voice is full of something I cannot place, and he starts to shuffle back down the way we came, arms still clenched around himself. Margaret might not be able to take him, but there is another way this could be solved. I could stay back with him. It'll put Bameli and myself at significantly more risk, but at least this man will stand a chance. Well, why can't Bameli go with Margaret and I'll stay with this new guy? Put a hand out to stop him. I straighten my arm out like a rod, blocking his progress past me. He stops, perplexed.
I am not afraid to stay behind, as long as Bemele can remain up front with you in your light.
Yeah, there. The guy doesn't say anything. He doesn't even blink. Margaret covers her mouth with her hand, muffling some sort of gasp. Bemele smiles sadly.
One can always count on you, Kika.
The man, meanwhile, stands with his mouth agape, truly and genuinely shocked.
Well, what will it be?
Margaret sputters for a second, searching for words, but clearly unaware of what to say. Bameli chimes in before she can get anything audible out.
I can stay in between you and the guide. I don't need to be right next to either of you. That way you won't have to worry about a repeat of what happened earlier.
I wouldn't refuse you being here.
Well, that's good to know, Margaret, considering we saved your life. The guy doesn't acknowledge them. He stares at the stranger. The man shakes under the attention.
No, really. I could just go on my own. It's fine.
I step closer to him, lending the support he seems to desperately need.
You do not need to go this alone. I will protect you.
The man stares at me. I return his gaze, willing him to see my certainty. There need be no blood spilt tonight. Slowly, the fear melts off his face, replaced with something like resignation. Then he drops his gaze to the floor.
Okay.
All right.
I grasp his shoulder and turn to the rest of the
You should get a
group.
head start, correct? You'll have to put some distance between us.
No! No, we don't have to do that!
Yes, we do.
Unnervingly, there's a hint of emotion in the guide's usually empty voice. Anger. He starts to walk, not waiting for a reply. Well, you know what? The guide already took off on us, so I don't know that we can trust him anyway. Margaret grits her teeth, eyes filling with tears, face flushed. She mumbles something in a small voice, something I'm just near enough to hear.
Why am I always so powerless?
The statement catches me somewhat off guard. Margaret? Powerless? She's not a mercenary, to be sure, but she seems so certain of herself. Then again, I don't know the reason she needs to cross this lake. Before I can decide whether I should respond, the tears fade from her eyes. Margaret takes a deep breath.
Please be careful.
We will. She takes a few steps back, lingering near enough for Bemily. Bemily smiles, first at the stranger and then at me.
Take care back here, all right? We'll all be together again when we reach the halfway island. It won't be too much longer now.
Oh my god, we're not even halfway?
We'll have a nice little camp out, and you can properly introduce yourself to us. Maybe even tell a real joke or two.
Someone should have built like a cruise ship. The man emits a nervous little laugh and ducks his head. The prospect must not be too enticing to him. With the stranger having pulled himself out of the conversation, Bemily looks seriously at me.
I'm sorry to put you in even more.
Stop.
Bemily shakes his head, still smiling.
I don't begrudge you at all. In fact, I'm glad you did. All I want is for you to remember that goal. Each of us, together, on the island, and then on the other shore, safe. This isn't about what our job is, or where other people need us to be.
I nod in response. Bemily opens his mouth, then closes it. He swallows hard.
You two.
I'm surprised to hear his voice wavering slightly. He swallows again, then continues.
You two should look out for each other.
We will, Bemily. He takes a few steps back, as if to go, but his eyes don't leave mine. He hesitates for a moment, then he crosses back to me and puts a hand on my shoulder. He smiles at me, a full smile of pride and nervousness and fear. I smile back, doing my best to communicate my gratitude and my resolve. I can't tell whether he understands. He softly glides his hand down the width of my arm before moving away for good. Then he takes his position ahead of Margaret.
Watch out for yourself, too. Not just for everyone else.
Thanks, Margaret.
I will.
The guide's figure disappears with only his lantern to lead the way. Bemily and Margaret are finally forced to leave us behind and catch up with him. I watch them disappear into the fog, an odd feeling in the pit of my stomach. I cannot recall the last time I had difficulty seeing someone leave.
You should go after them.
We both will. I start. I almost forgot the man was there, standing right next to me. Now he looks at me with desperate eyes.
You don't need to do this.
Yes, I do.
What?
I'd rather know you returned to them safe, and that you all had a chance to make it back together.
We all will make it together.
The way they acted, having to go on without you, no one would feel that way for me. I'm not worth it.
That's not...
I stop, unable to say the last word. Can I claim that he's wrong? This is the only thing he has seemed sure of, and I don't know him. Empty platitudes may be worse than nothing at all. He smirks at my mumbling reply. I'm caught off guard by the change. With only that, it seems he's in his element.
It's true.
He continues to grin, more so to himself than me.
You lot certainly made a scene, huh? That's nice. Being loved and all.
He clarifies after I must have given an undesired reaction to the statement. I am so disconnected with myself, I am unsure if surprise appeared on my face or if it was a lack of emotion that put him off.
I don't know exactly what kind of love it is you share, but there has to be a bond in that group of yours. I mean, especially with the big one. You wouldn't look at anyone like that.
Let's just get off this bridge, and man, there's monsters all around. He laughs, and then he speaks quietly.
It doesn't matter. I can still try for the other shore. Go.
No, you're coming with me, you idiot. I will stay. My certainty shocks him. I can tell immediately he has returned to his meeker self. The man starts to speak again, but I interrupt.
We should start walking. That should be enough of a head start for them.
He hesitates for a moment, but ultimately begins walking at my side. I'm relieved. I can never be quite sure what will come from this one. We move in silence. The man doesn't seem to want to speak anymore, but he keeps glancing at me, as if expecting something. Somehow, his odd behavior is comforting rather than disconcerting. Perhaps it's because he's more nervous about this than I am. It's putting me at ease, making me feel more capable. I shouldn't allow myself to get comfortable, however. We're in a more dangerous position than ever. The whispering from the lake, so faint after Bemely's close call, now surges forth. It grows nigh unbearable, the creatures teeming below the surface. I dare not speculate on what has them so excited.
Have you a name?
The man chuckles dryly.
Barely.
I don't really know what I am to take from that.
This time, his laugh is more of a bark, quickly out and swallowed back up. Then he frowns.
Lou. Only 2 letters. So barely.
Hello, Lou.
I see. What are you doing out here without the guide?
Perhaps the question isn't appropriate to ask. After all, only the darkest of circumstances spurs someone to cross Sinnlos. But this situation is very strange. I might even go so far as to say it's suspicious. I know that's not fair, but I can't help it. Years spent anticipating danger have made me wary.
That's a good question. I'm not sure I know myself.
What does that mean? Is that some sort of joke too? Or do you genuinely not remember how you arrived where you are?
No, it wasn't a joke. Or, well, there is a point to it all.
Then his voice, already by nature light and airy, drops to a whisper.
But I don't know why I even tried. You'd think that I'd be able to call a spade already, right?
He looks up, noticing my gaze still leveled at him. Then he shrugs.
I'd rather not talk about it.
Okay, let's get going. As what has become the norm, I don't fully understand what he means, but I can at least guess that he's not very happy with himself at present. And like it or not, he won't be sharing his real reasons with me.
What about you? What brings you out on this little adventure?
People. On the other side. People who need my help.
You have someone waiting on you? Then why are you risking yourself on me instead of worrying about what's going to happen to them?
I feel my brows furrow from my speck of alarm. Is that really what he took from this? I survey his face with a flick of my eyes, but there's no mischievous gleam to his look now. He's serious. We hold eye contact for a moment until he yet again stares down at the ground.
Sorry. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. It just fell out somehow. I wasn't thinking.
He seems very young. You're important as well. His stare shoots back up at me, eyes wide.
Of course I'm going to be there for those counting on me. But you aren't nothing. I won't simply turn my back on you.
He smiles sadly, the kind of smile only someone who has experienced great hardship has. A smile I'm all too familiar with.
I probably have to disagree. Still, that's nice of you to say.
We may not know each other well, but you wanted us to go on without you for our own safety. You even tried to have a sense of humor about it. That counts for something.
Exactly. My statement is far from grand, yet he becomes distinctly bashful all of a sudden, twitching his legs with each step. He hangs his head and mumbles his next phrase. Sadly, he seems unaccustomed to receiving praise.
That's true. Thank you for staying back with me. It's kind of nice.
You're welcome.
No need to thank me.
Oh, right. I can't even show gratitude correctly. Of course.
Oh, don't be a dork. I go to give him a look, but he's smiling. He looks less pitiful than usual. He almost seems content. While crossing Sinnlos? How? Why? Sinnlos, not Sinnlos. My arrow was in the way.
It is not funny to make a joke out of thinking that way about yourself.
If you don't want people to say things like that, then you shouldn't reject their things. Either I did right by thanking you, or I did wrong.
Fine. You're welcome.
Well, was that so hard, Kika? This time he lets out a real laugh, though a short one.
I'm glad.
He stretches his arm out in front of him and elongates his strides so he's walking a bit ahead of me. It sits wrong with me. He's relaxed and completely unguarded. He's even fine with distancing himself from the light and all the odd comments he has said so far. Then a thought strikes me. Maybe the reason he's so calm is that he doesn't care what happens to him. My heart plummets into my gut. For a time, there is relative peace in the silence between us. Then Lou sighs heavily.
I never could have seen myself in a situation like this. It seems things really aren't over until they're over.
Did you think it was over?
He doesn't answer immediately. When he does, the reply is accompanied by him grasping himself, like he might fall apart if he lets go.
Yeah, I did.
That would have been the normal outcome for his situation. Alone, lightless. I shouldn't have asked. I must have let a frown slip through, though, because Lou smiles a non-smile. He stretches his hand behind his neck and gives a little chuckle.
Something really is wrong with me. Somehow, I feel lighter.
All right, well, maybe this is good. If he's feeling better than he was, then perhaps his view of himself will improve.
I wonder who'll still be left standing when this is truly all over.
What?
Everyone will be.
I say it firmly to end the discussion, but Lou's expression grows grave and unusually sympathetic.
You know that's not possible, don't you? Someone will go. You should focus on making sure it's someone else.
No, don't think like that.
You don't seem to be concerned with self-preservation.
That came out more hostile than I had expected. He doesn't mind.
True, but it's not the same for me.
I still don't know how I'm supposed to interact with a person like him. Making conversation is already not a strength I possess. Regardless, Lou, echoing that sentiment, was not something I had expected. The whispers from the lake, which had already grown, now speak faster and clearer. The individual words are almost audible. I'd likely be able to make them out if I knew the Nix language. For a split second, I wish I did. The light in the distance still drifts along in the same manner as it did when we first started walking, which I take to mean the path hasn't turned so far. Hopefully that means we're still on the right path. But the light, it got brighter? It's strong enough that I have to glance away for a second, and the next time I look, the light has grown. The bridge is on fire! I grab Lou's arm without thinking. He's standing there stiff, staring at the glow, eyes dull.
We're going to run.
To hell with the guide's order. If we don't go now, we will never go anywhere again. Lou doesn't respond. I give his arm a small tug, and he appears to come to himself when he nods at me. I make the decision then that I won't let go of his arm. I don't know what will happen to him if I do. We take off, the heat growing with each step. The dankness of the bridge means the fire is spreading slowly, but it makes me question how it began in the first place. There is no end to how wrong this place is. It takes 20 paces before the air around us ripples, then starts folding into itself. Thick smoke pours over us, stinging like scorpions at my eyes. I cover my mouth with my free arm to keep breathing, and soon we're at the fire itself. The bridge lurches beneath us, as if the beams supporting it are starting to give way to the thousands of flying sparks. Lou stumbles and pulls against me for support, but we keep our ground. I start pulling him through the blaze. We don't have time to gather our bearings. Who knows how long we have until the bridge collapses or is devoured by flames. As we push through the smoke, Lou wheezing for breath beside me, figures emerge, Emily and Margaret. I look at the two and the situation around them, baffled. None of the individual pieces make any sense, until the reality of it hits me all at once. The guide is gone. Margaret paused at the bridge. Her lantern is at her side. It's her glasses she's missing. Emily is off to the other side, lanternless, with only the flickering embers in the wind to keep him out of the darkness. I want to pretend they're both fine, that they'll be capable of handling themselves, but I know that's just wishful thinking. Both of them are in danger. Oh God, they're gonna make me choose someone? I don't know how the Nixie feel about fire, how daring they'll be with it so close by, but I can't assume this is an opportunity they would want to miss. I have to do something, and I have to do it now. I waste not a moment more, rushing to Bemeli, Lou in tow. Bemeli and I arrived here together. We agreed to see it through to the end. We promised to protect each other. I have to be there for him. When I reach his side and illuminate his face with my lantern, he's beaming. I'm sure some part of him thought that when we parted, it might have been for good.
It's a relief to see you. Both of you.
Then there's a scream. Margaret is nowhere to be seen. The light of her lantern is gone. She's trapped in the darkness.
Margaret?
Did she move? Did she fall? Did the bridge collapse?
Kika!
I hear her and turn in her direction. There, through the smoke, I see her looking up at me. She's trying to stand, but she's struggling for some reason. Then I see a gleam of white on a slick black behind her, and I understand why.
Run!
A Nyx grabs hold of Margaret's dress just as she gets to her feet. It pulls. She slams back to the ground, head hitting the bridge with a sickening thud. Margaret groans and starts to yell.
Let go of me! Let go!
Take off your dress. She's flailing, kicking her legs and her arms. She's disoriented. She doesn't know where it's coming from. The Nyx yanks her again. Another grabs hold, and she feels the tug enough to grab onto that portion of her dress and tear it. She's trying to rip it off. I run to her side, my light finally illuminating her form. Seeing the light spill onto her, the Nyx retreat back into the water, but they don't let go of her dress. Margaret screams, being dragged across the bridge. She digs her nails into the wood to stop herself, hands bleeding, but each soggy hold she finds slips through her grasp. I reach my hand out to
Grab
her.
it!
Margaret looks at me, kicking again with her leg. She doesn't even try to reach for me. She knows it's not going to fix this. Then she disappears. There's a quiet splash.
No!
I rush to the edge of the bridge, searching the water for some sign of her, but there's nothing. Nothing but the placid black sheen of the lake. They took her to drown with the rest of them. Tears burn my eyes.
I'm sorry, Margaret. None of this should have happened.
Then a warm hand clasps my shoulder. Bemeli. He smiles through a pained expression. I stare at him and can barely keep myself together.
What happened to the guide? Is he also?
My voice cracks in spite of myself. I don't know that I want to hear the answer, but it has to be said.
No. That man's still slinking around this hell on Earth. The bridge jerked, Margaret's glasses fell off, and the guide kept going. I stayed, but I kept my distance in case...
He looks away.
In case there was a repeat of last time. I shouldn't have stayed so far off.
It's not your fault. I could have thrown my lantern or gone to her sooner or anything.
Kika.
I'm furious with myself. It's our fault Margaret was put in danger in the first place. Margaret didn't get to choose whether Lou came either. I made that call. She was so kind to us, and yet when the choice had to be made, I threw her to the side. but Melly seems to have read my mind and comforts me over thoughts I have left instead.
Listen to me. We tried. You never gave up on anyone. Not for a second.
He puts his second hand on my other shoulder and resists the urge to embrace me fully. The bridge trembles underneath us once more. I gather what wits I have left at my disposal.
We need to leave. Which way did the guide go?
I don't know for sure, though he went off in that direction. The fog overtook him, but I didn't see him turn.
That will work. Lou?
I look around for him, realizing he's not with me any longer. At some point, I let go of his arm. He's standing to the side, gaze glazed, transfixed on the darkness. He seems completely unaware of anything that's happened. The fire, the Nixie, the death. I step forward and yank him back to
What
my
are you
side.
doing?
He flinches at the unexpected contact and looks attentively at me, but he doesn't offer any explanation.
I'm sorry.
That's all he ever says. I let go of him.
Both of you stay close. We are not going to separate again.
We keep down the path, the flames still gradually gnawing at the planks behind us. The guide doesn't turn up, nor do any signs of him, but we push on. We will not stop moving. Then we do. The bridge comes to a dead end of rotted out boards collapsed into the lake. For a moment, our breathing stops at once. If this was the way that led to the island, then... I flip back to face the others, my expression unaffected. I'm not going to allow panic to sap this group of judgment.
Let's look for another bridge.
I resolutely begin retracing our path. The others follow without protest. Our regression is silent, except for our footfalls and the snapping of soggy wood attempting to burn. We frequently have to step over smoldering sections, trying to come alight. At one point, we even have to walk one at a time, sideways, to avoid a wildly flickering small fire billowing out black smoke. Just as my spirit is beginning to dim, we come across different directions to take. Among all the forks, there are only two that aren't collapsed or too consumed by fire to risk following.
We're going to have to pick one.
Oh, God. Melly sounds uncharacteristically doubtful of himself. Lou's gaze is flickering down either path. There's a palpable sense of anxiety coming from him.
I don't know. I don't know which way.
Me either.
It's all right.
But it's not all right. We have to have something to go off of, anything at all. A cold sweat trickles its way down my back. Before anyone tries to randomly choose, a noise catches my attention. I hastily adjust the two.
Did you hear that?
A whistle.
It came from the right.
Lou and I trade looks. This could be the signal we need. But what if it isn't?
Do those monsters know how to whistle?
I don't know. It seems unlikely. The air isn't pleasant to them. They're underwater creatures.
We should go right, I think. To where the sound came from.
I'm a little surprised Lou is offering his own opinion. It's good to hear, however. I take a deep breath.
I agree. There's more of a chance the whistle was a sign for good over ill.
I agree, too. Our course decided, we move as one down the right path, no longer hesitating. As we follow the bridge down, there is no sign of the end. There's no need to debate between directions again. We start to outpace the fire, one danger thankfully fading away, but the night continues to lighten regardless. I glance at the sky and realize what's happening. The sun is rising. The bridges will sink into the water as the darkness disappears and take us with them. We'll be lost. Why would the bridge sink when the sun comes up? It suddenly seems pointless. We don't even know whether we've gone the right way, and we still haven't caught up to the guide. We can't outswim the Nixie, and we can't outrun the dawn. We're going to run out of time. Yet, we keep moving forward. And finally, our perseverance is rewarded. A silhouette of an island rises in the distance. The island grows rapidly larger, and soon the scents of earth and trees reach us. In spite of all the horrors of this night, a dock emerges from the fog before us, welcoming us to safety. We reach the shore. I don't believe it until I've stepped off the wood and my boot sinks into the sand. I walk further inland like a corpse, my sole instinct to flee from the waterline. My hazy eyes single in on something ahead. The guide stands on an outcropping in the distance, watching like a sentinel. He doesn't even come to greet us. I stare at him for a moment, not even able to feel alarmed at my own lack of feelings about the situation. He uses his staff to gesture to the forest behind him before disappearing between the trees. I can only assume he must be asking me to follow.
Did he even notice?
Emily's biting whisper doesn't continue beyond that, but it doesn't have to. Did the guide notice someone is missing? That they have been taken? Emily stalks off, clenching his fists. I can't blame him, but I don't share his anger. I still feel hollow. I follow after Bemily, and Lou does the same. The guide takes us further inland, more toward the center. There's a view of the coastline from here, but we're also partially obscured by a few trees.
It's time to sleep.
No one has the energy to argue with him at this moment. I find a place as comfortable as one could ask for, and in a location like this, next to one of the trees, further out, and lay down, trying to block out my thoughts. Okay guys, and on that note, I think we're going to stop here. I hope you're enjoying it. It's not really a game, it's more like a visual novel, but it's pretty interesting. Alright, take care. If you liked it, don't forget to like and share, and thank you very much. Bye!